Coming up on Primetime News, we're finally seeing some progress on the wage row at the Kaesong Industrial Complex. The two Koreas agree on a tentative back pay deal, but raise talks loom. And former Korean Air executive Cho Hyun-ah is freed. Her nut rage disrupted a flight, but Seoul's High Court reduced and suspended her sentence. While North Korea continues to issue military threats, chief nuclear envoys from South Korea, the United States, and Japan will meet in Seoul for talks on deterrence. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello and welcome to Primetime News on this Friday, May 22nd. I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us. Let's start with inter-Korean relations. Finally, a small breakthrough in the months-long wage row at the inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex.
Seoul's Unification Ministry said Friday that committees from the two Koreas finally agreed on the payment of overdue wages for some 53,000 North Korean workers hired by South Korean firms at the complex.
The North has accepted Seoul's offer to pay those wages at the previously set rate of just over $70. Separate consultations will be held to discuss the North's demand that wages be increased to $74 per month.
North Korea has stepped up its threat game lately, claiming its miniaturized nuclear weapons and successfully tested a submarine-launched ballistic missile. Those threats make next week's defense meeting between Seoul and its major allies even more pressing. Connie Kim has this report.
The chief nuclear envoys from South Korea, the United States, and Japan will meet in Seoul for talks on the recent situation in North Korea and its nuclear threats. Seoul's Foreign Affairs Ministry said Friday the two-day meeting, which starts Tuesday, will involve its chief nuclear envoy Hwang Ji-hye and his U.S. and Japanese counterparts Sung Kim and Junichi Ihara. The three serve as delegates to the now suspended six-party talks on denuclearizing North Korea. Through the upcoming talks, they'll seek to bring about progress in the North Korean nuclear issue at all levels, including deterrence, pressure, and dialogue. The trilateral talks come on the heels of North Korea claiming it successfully test-fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile. Pyongyang has also claimed capability of miniaturizing nuclear weapons, a crucial step toward building nuclear missiles. Calling North Korea's test firing of the submarine-launched ballistic missile a violation of various UN resolutions, Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo are seeking to take action against the regime at the UN. The resolutions ban Pyongyang from conducting any launches using ballistic missile technology. The last meeting between the three countries was held in January, when they agreed on the need for a strong signal from the North that it is sincere about denuclearization before returning to the long-stalled six-party nuclear talks. The talks involving the two Koreas, the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia were last held in December 2008. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And a senior U.S. official has reaffirmed that discussion on Washington's potential deployment of an American missile defense system known as THAAD to the Korean Peninsula remains only within the U.S. Na Young-kyung has more.
U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs Daniel Russell has confirmed once again that officials are talking about sending an anti-ballistic missile battery to South Korea. But he emphasized that the discussions are being kept within the U.S. for now.
There's some consideration underway among and within the U.S. government as to what systems make sense, including the question of THAAD.
The Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD battery, if deployed, will provide better security for South Korea as it can shoot down ballistic missiles coming from North Korea. But because it comes with a radar system whose range is more than 1,000 kilometers, China and Russia strongly oppose the idea. Still, U.S. officials keep mentioning the topic in public, saying it's one of the most effective ways to deter North Korean missile threats. Russell emphasized, however, that it won't be on the agenda for the summit between Seoul and Washington scheduled for mid-June.
I do not expect President Obama and President Park to discuss the issue of a THAAD ballistic missile defense because we have not begun government-to-government consultations.
The issue has caused quite a stir within South Korea, with some skeptics saying the Korean government is being too passive about the issue. Defense Ministry officials in Seoul have been repeating their stance that they cannot make a decision until they receive an official request from Washington. Hyun-ah, Arirang News.
The ruling Saenuri Party and the government said Friday that South Korea needs an apology from the North before it lifts the sanctions imposed on Pyongyang for the deadly sinking of a South Korean warship back in 2010. Let's turn to our Kim Young-gil for details.
The ruling Saenuri Party and Unification Ministry officials made the agreement during a policy coordination meeting on Friday, ahead of the 5th anniversary of the May 24 measures imposed by Seoul on Pyongyang. At the meeting, Unification Minister Hong Yong-pyo said the May 24 sanctions cannot be lifted under the current circumstances, in which North Korea isn't taking any steps to take responsibility for the sinking. Seoul imposed the sanctions, which ban economic and cultural exchanges with Pyongyang, after the North torpedo attack on the South Korean Navy corvette Cheonan in March 2010. The North has not yet apologized for the sinking and continues to demand the sanctions be withdrawn. Although the dispute has disrupted inter-Korean relations, the ruling party advised the government to maintain economic ties with the North. The party's chief policymaker Hwang Ji-hye said Seoul should show some flexibility in providing humanitarian assistance to Pyongyang and maintain any trilateral economic cooperation projects involving the North, like the Najin-Hassan logistics project. The symbolic project involves sending coal from Russia's border city of Hassan to North Korea's port city of Najin via a connected railway, and then shipping the coal to South Korea. Last month, a second shipment of some 140,000 tons of Russian coal arrived in South Korea via Najin. Going forward, the ruling party and the government both say they will do their best to monitor inter-Korean relations, following signs of instability in the North, including its recent claim that it test-fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Let's move on to a North Korean celebrity sighting overseas. The older brother of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un made a rare public appearance in London earlier this week. Japanese broadcaster TBS spotted the 33-year-old Kim Jong-chul at an Eric Clapton concert on Wednesday with a young woman believed to be his girlfriend. Kim, known to be a huge fan of Clapton, seemed to fully enjoy the concert celebrating the rock star's 70th birthday. This was the first public sighting of Kim since his brother came into power in 2011. The last time the elder Kim was seen in public was 4 years ago, also at an Eric Clapton concert, that time in Singapore. A source in London has confirmed that Kim is headed for Moscow on Friday.
Tensions continue to flare around historical issues between Seoul and Tokyo. Today, Korea urged Japan to address the slave labor issue in its UNESCO World Heritage bid for 23 industrial facilities. Nearly 60,000 Koreans were forced to work as slaves in 7 of the sites during World War II. The Korean ambassador for Cultural and UNESCO Affairs made the request during a meeting with his Japanese counterpart. Tokyo's top spokesman has said, however, that politics should not have an impact on the country's application. And with Korea and Japan tangled in a prolonged historical dispute, there are increasing calls for the two neighbors to meet and talk it out. Hwang Ji-hye sat down with former Japanese Prime Minister Yasuo Fukuda at the Jeju Forum, and he echoed those calls for dialogue.
So let's begin with your assessment of Korea-Japan relations under the Park Geun-hye administration and the Abe administration.
Since the two leaders are from the same generation, I believe that they will get along fine when they meet. That's why I think it's important for them to meet. When they meet, I think they will be able to establish a good relationship.
So what do you think needs to be done from both sides, Korea and Japan, for a breakthrough?
One of the most important things is for the two leaders to meet. And more importantly, they should not hesitate to meet each other. But we cannot expect one meeting to resolve all issues. This is where the public's understanding becomes important.
You served as Prime Minister Abe's envoy to China, and considering that China and Japan have held a couple of rounds of summits while Korea and Japan have yet to meet at the highest level, there are concerns that Korea might be the only one left out of the picture at the end of the day. What's your view?
Regarding that question, didn't the leaders of Japan and China meet last November? And didn't they meet just for the sake of meeting? When it comes to Korea-Japan relations, I am hoping that the two leaders will also meet. I think there is nothing more important than the two of them meeting each other.
What do you think about Prime Minister Abe's use of the word human trafficking when he speaks of the comfort women?
Speaking with the understanding that I am not completely aware of the two countries' thinking, Prime Minister Abe never thought about the comfort woman issue as unimportant. That's the way I understand it.
What are your expectations for the so-called Abe statement that's set to be released in August?
It is unnecessary for an individual to imagine what kinds of expressions will be included. I hope it will contain messages that the neighboring countries can relate to and that they can at least understand under what circumstances this statement is being released.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for your time today.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Now, shifting gears to the latest on the Korean Air nut rage case. The former airline executive left prison on Friday after an appeals court lowered her sentence. She had been jailed after throwing a fit over how she was served a bag of nuts on a flight. The Seoul High Court reduced Cho Hyun-ah's sentence from 1 year in prison to 10 months suspended for 2 years. It ruled that Cho, the daughter of the airline's chairman, violated aviation security law when she ordered the chief flight attendant off a departing flight in December, forcing it to return the terminal in New York. But the court said her actions did not force the plane to change its flight path, one of the most contentious points of the case. The upper court also upheld her conviction for assaulting flight attendants. Cho had been behind bars since December.
As we have reported earlier, the Park administration has tapped Justice Minister Hwang Ji-hye for Korea's next prime minister. But he has a daunting hurdle to clear: a confirmation hearing at the National Assembly. And as you might expect, the main rival parties aren't shy about expressing their opinions for and against the nominee. Our Park Ji-won gives us the details.
Current Justice Minister Hwang Ji-hye is the Park Geunhye administration's 6th prime minister nominee since President Park took office in 2013. Only 2 previous nominees for the post have actually passed the grueling confirmation hearing process at the National Assembly, so all eyes are now on whether Hwang will be confirmed for the country's second highest office. The ruling Senator party says he will easily pass the test, as he already went through the excruciating process when he was appointed Justice Minister 2 years ago.
As Justice Minister, Hwang led the preservation of the nation's constitutional values and legal order.
The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy has vowed to scrutinize the nominee's qualifications for the post. One of the liberal camp's main concerns is whether Hwang's ideology leans too far to the right and whether he can be politically neutral in the job. Hwang was a prosecutor for some 30 years whose area of expertise was the national security law, which bans support of North Korea and anti-state crimes. As Justice Minister, Hwang led the unprecedented dissolution of the far-left Unified Progressive Party late last year for its pro-North Korean activities.
Hwang's nomination is the administration's outright declaration that state affairs will be based on the terror of the national security law.
Also at issue is his salary while he was working at a law firm after he retired from the prosecutor's office. He was paid nearly $1.4 million for the 17 months he spent at the firm, although the number of cases he dealt during that time is reportedly not many. During his confirmation hearing for the Justice Minister position 2 years ago, Hwang said he'd donate some of that money, but it's not yet clear whether he kept his word. His exemption from his mandatory military service back in 1980 has also raised questions. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Moving on, Koreans were reluctant to spend their money in the first quarter of this year, even though their average income rose. For some explanations and the defining digits, let's turn to our Hwang Ji-hye.
Koreans have been hesitant to spend their money in the first 3 months of the year, as the average tendency to consume dropped to an all-time low of 72.3% in the first quarter. The index measures the proportion of disposable income people use every month. Koreans' reluctance to spend may seem curious because they earned more in the first quarter compared to a year before. The average monthly income of Korean households consisting of 2 or more members was a little more than $4,100 in the first quarter, a 2.6% rise from 2014. Factoring in inflation, that's a rise of 2%. Still, households spent just $2,800 a month on average, a mere 0.2% increase from the year before. People spent more than last year on food, health, and housing, and they also spent more on tobacco due to a recent hike that doubled the price. They spent less on phone bills, clothes, and transportation. The lower spending is attributed to low global crude oil prices that contributed a lot to reducing transportation fees. According to Statistics Korea, if oil prices are factored out, there actually could have been a slight rise in spending. Experts say another reason is linked to the rapid aging of the population, as people are saving more these days to prepare for their lives after retirement. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
In other news, it was a very fitting sunny day for the opening of an innovation center dedicated to the solar energy industry, part of the Park Geun-hye administration's creative economy drive. The president was there herself for the ceremony and she promised full support for small and mid-sized firms there. Our Shin Se-min has this report.
Korea's 11th Innovation Center opened Friday with great fanfare in Cheonan, in the western province of Chungcheongnam-do. The opening of the center, which is dedicated to the solar energy sector, coincides with Korea's drive to go green by cutting carbon emissions, seeking renewable energy sources, and lessening its dependence on fossil fuels. President Park Geun-hye, who spoke at the opening ceremony, promised to foster the solar energy industry by spurring innovation in the sector and helping small and mid-sized companies extend their reach into the global market.
충남혁신센터는 태양광 응용 제품 창업과 신시장 개척의 베이스 캠프로서 관련 중소기업의 혁신과 창업을 활성화시킬 것입니다.
President Park also referred to a global solar-powered product market that grows more than 15% annually. She added that the global shift towards going green and using clean energy instead of fossil fuels poses great challenges, but said it offers a myriad of opportunities for the Korean economy. To support the new center, Hanwha Group has unveiled its plan to build a self-sustainable, solar-powered island by wiping out diesel-powered generators and replacing them with solar panels. Hanwha Q-Cells, one of the world's leading photovoltaic companies, is also investing some $27 million to build a plant in the western coastal city of Seoul that will help smaller firms test their products. The government plans to open 6 more creative economy centers by the end of June, bringing the total of 17 nationwide. 신세민, Arirang News.
And for the top international headlines, we connect to Polly at the News Center.
Our focus today, the Islamic State group cements its grip over Iraq and Syria. Ireland votes in a historic referendum on same-sex marriage, and we have 3 movies set to smash the weekend box office: a reboot, a remake, and a Disney movie.
But Paul, let's begin in the Middle East. Major developments in the unfolding crisis in Iraq and Syria. Islamic State militants have taken over another 2 cities while gaining full control of the border between the 2 countries.
Right, that's the latest assessment from the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights Monitoring Group. This as the U.S. State Department described the situation as merely a setback in what it expects to be a long-term conflict. On the other hand, the Iraqi government is wasting no time in tackling this unprecedented threat. On Thursday, President Vladimir Putin met with Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi and offered military and other aid to help push back the militant group. In the meantime, Iraq's deputy prime minister is attending the World Economic Forum in Jordan. There, he called on the international community to form a clear political and military strategy to fight IS.
It is now clear that fighting Islamic State is not a municipal matter. There has to be a clear strategy from the international community, or else those who believe danger is not close will experience this danger. All the world will experience this danger if there is not a clear strategy to fight Islamic State.
Meanwhile, waves of civilians are fleeing the central Iraqi city of Ramadi, which was recently taken over by IS insurgents. The International Organization for Migration says about 40,000 people have been displaced in the region since last Friday. And shifting to Ireland, where voters are heading to the polls in a historic referendum on same-sex marriage. Backed by major political parties, the reform could make the once deeply Catholic country the first in the world to adopt the civil rights policy by popular vote. Many proponents say they hope a yes vote will bring real equality to Ireland.
I can't conceive of a world where this vote doesn't pass. So I just think at any point in history, change which is more progressive and more inclusive can really help the people of a country. So I think this would be great for, national mood. I think it would be great for, the inclusivity of LGBTQ people. And I just think it would be positive in general to have this positive change in Ireland.
Those opposed, including church leaders, have raised concerns over the legality of parenthood and surrogacy rights for gay couples. Polling stations across Ireland will close in the next few hours, with the final result expected to be released on Saturday. And finally, a series of blockbuster movies are set to hit the big screen this weekend, with Disney's Tomorrowland expected to smash the box office. The film stars George Clooney as a genius inventor who helps a teenage girl reach a futuristic world. The sci-fi action adventure, however, is receiving mixed reviews from critics. The New York Times praised its passion but panned its lack of charm. Also new this weekend, the thriller Poltergeist, a remake of the 1982 story of a family haunted by an evil force. Another remake, Mad Max Fury Road, is expected to pull in $26 million this weekend, adding to its international earnings of some $120 million. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here on Monday.
It was a hot Friday under dazzling sunshine. The high in Seoul jumped to 27.2 degrees, the second hottest day of the season. And people in Donghae and northern Gyeongsang-do province really felt the heat today, with highs peaking above 30 degrees this afternoon. And there's also a dry weather alert in place for Gangwon-do and northern Gyeongsang-do provinces. So if you're there, be sure to drink plenty of water. Well, it's the start of a long weekend, as Monday is Buddha's birthday, a national holiday here in Korea, and the weather will be fairly nice for celebrating, but temperatures, as we can see, will go up higher each day under mostly sunny skies, so please keep that in mind. With that, let's take a closer look at the readings for tomorrow. The afternoon high here in Seoul and Daegu will climb up to 28, and Gwangju and Busan will peak at 25 and 23 respectively. And as for the other regions, Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 28 and 25. 21, while Tokdo rises to 26. Well, that's all for the weather. Have a wonderful weekend.
Well, they say whether on the racetracks or in life, a smooth race never makes a skilled driver. Well, that wraps up our newscast. Thank you so much for staying with us. This has been Daniel Choy.
And I'm Hwang Ji-hye. Do join us again same time next week. Here's wishing you a great weekend.